Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov's chess channel and welcome to the round 6 of the Tata Steel Masters tournament in 2020 in Netherlands. So we have the clash Magnus Carlsen versus Fabiano Caruana, the world champion, against the world championship challenger from 2018. And this was, I think, again a very important game for Magnus Carlsen, because in this game he had the opportunity to break the world record, although he already broke the record. But according to him, he did want to calculate these two games that he played in this Norway League, this two wins against 2300 rated players. He said in one of his interviews that he'll only count these games against this top grandmasters, against this elite level in chess, and that's why if he again makes a draw or wins against Fabiano Caruana, according to him, he now broke the record in this non-losing streak, because so far Magnus Carlsen hasn't lost a game for 112 games, which is really incredible information. And but today he faced Fabi, and the game transposed into Queen's Gambit declined. And Garry Kasparov once said about the Queen's Gambit declined that this is a really drawish opening, and I never consider any opening drawish, but you'll see now in this particular game that if you get out of this opening very good, in the White doesn't have, I think, so many attacking possibilities. This game that Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen will play here, I think it's understandable for all of us, because they're really both of them have this great theoretical knowledge, and that's why they're of course the first and the second in the world, and they have to search for more points even through this tournament, because I don't think they're satisfied both with this result so far. Magnus Carlsen had only 2.5 points. Fabiano Caruana had 3 points before this round, so many games still to play, but they have to make something happen if they want to maybe even win this tournament. So let's see the game. We have d4 here by Magnus, we have knight to f6 by Fabiano Caruana, and now c4. We have e6, the Nimzo Indian, here knight to f3, the counter Nimzo setup, and now d5. Now we have knight to c3, the Queen's Gambit decline, and now bishop to e7. And Magnus Carlsen had some troubles as White in the World Championship match against Fabiano Caruana in the Queen's Gambit decline. He hasn't won a game in this particular opening. He has only won some games in the English opening, in the rapid section of the World Championship match. So maybe she should try to avoid the Queen's Gambit decline, because Fabiano Caruana is really a master from Black's perspective, so maybe she should try to avoid it here. Magnus tried bishop to g5, although the most natural way is here to proceed with the move bishop to f4 to create some attacking possibilities, so maybe with some potential e3 moves and similar ideas. Here in the game, the problem always about this move bishop to g5 is it seems like it's more aggressive than this move bishop to f4, but it's the bishop is always vulnerable to your attacks, and here Fabiano Caruana uses this moment immediately and plays the move bishop to h6, attacking the bishop, and now bishop to h4. And now there is this problem. After d takes c4, you have to play the move e3, because you would love to play something like e4, here e4, to get a very powerful central control with your pawns, but it's not possible, because there are now some tactics. Here the possibility is to play knight to e4. If bishop takes e7, first we have this intermediate knight takes c3, also attacking the queen. Bishop takes d8, knight takes d1. If bishop takes c7, then we have knight takes b2, and you have again protected this c4 pawn, so you're continuing the game with one pawn up. You still can try maybe something like rook to b1, but now c3 is the possibility to keep your pawns on the board. Here maybe you can try to play rook to c1 again, but here I think knight to a4. After something like bishop to b5, we have bishop to d7, bishop takes a4, and now after bishop takes a4, okay, you can take the pawn on c3 here, but I think black can solve all the problems with the move bishop to c6. You're attacking the knight. You see the knight is a little bit stuck here because then the g2 is hanging, and the problem is you're continuing the game with this isolated pawn, which is a long-term weakness, so this wouldn't be a good continuation, I think, for white. Okay, black doesn't have an immediate winning position, but I think black is slightly better here. So that's why you see how dangerous this opening can be if you don't understand the position. So that's why you have to play this calm move e3. So in the game c5 played by Fabiano Caruana, also common idea to crack the position immediately, because white has this pawn central control. By this pawn central control, I mean always you look at this D and E file, how many pawns do you have in the center. So far Magnus has 2 pawns, and here Fabiano has only 1 pawn in the center, so it means the white has this pawn central control, which is a good strategical element. So that's why Fabiano Caruana plays the accurate move with the move c5, cracks the position immediately. So bishop to c4, we have c takes d4, and now knight to d4. If you take with the pawn, e takes d4. Of course, if you take with the queen, then it leads to simplification, because we can trade off the queens. But if you take e takes d4, knight to c6 after castling can be played, and I think black doesn't have any problems. Maybe rook to e1 can be played, but here again I'm pointing out white has this isolated pawn situations, which is a weakness in the position, so you should avoid it if possible, of course. In the game, that's why knight to d4 was played, and now bishop to d7. Of course, you don't want to play immediately knight to c6, because then white can try maybe knight takes c6 after b takes c6. Now black is continuing the game with the weakness, which is an isolated pawn. So that's why you see these elements of this queen's gambit decline are really this tiny little things, this tiny little weaknesses that you can create in your opponent's position, and when you create them, then you simply play onto that weakness. So if black continues, for instance, with this weak pawn on c6, you simply want to attack it or get use of these weaknesses. Maybe here this c5 square, or maybe if the position allows it, this d6 square. So that's why you see bishop to d7 by Caruana, preparing now this move knight to c6, because if then the knight takes, then we can recapture with the bishop and get our bishop on a very active diagonal. So castling played by Fabi, also rook to c1, and now finally this move knight to c6, challenging the knight in the center. Again, if the queen, for instance, removes something like queen to e2, then after knight to d4, after e takes d4, again black is threatening this positional problems in white's position to create again this isolated pawn. So knight to b3 played by Magnus. Here we have rook to c8, and now bishop to e2. Very nice positional move, I think, by Magnus Carlsen, because now we want to play something like bishop to f3, gaining this bishop on a very active diagonal, because the bishop here on c4, although it had a good activity, but it's a little bit blocked out by this pawn structure, by this defensive setup that black has built here. So bishop to f3 is the main idea to create some progress maybe in the continuation of the game. So knight to d5, I hope you realize how both of these players are not allowing any weaknesses in the position. That's why this game is really great. That's why also the title is it's like 2 robots playing here in this particular game. Knight to d5, here bishop to g3 had to be played, and now simply knight to c3. You see rook to c3 again. Magnus doesn't take with the pawn. B takes c3 again leads into a position in which one of his players has the weakness of this weak pawn or a weak square. So after rook takes c3, we have knight to b4, discoverably attacking the rook. So again, the threat is to create a weakness in the position. So again, b takes c3. So that's why Magnus took. Rook takes c8. We have queen takes c8, and now here bishop to d6 played by Magnus Carlsen. So maybe it wasn't the best of choices, but still you don't have, I think, so much possibilities here. If you try, for instance, queen to b1 here, to to protect this a2 pawn. Queen to c2 is not so good for Fabiano Caruana, because after taking queen takes c2, knight takes c2, rook bishop to f3 can be played, attacking this pawn. If you try something like b6, then rook to c1 is very, very dangerous. You see, if you retreat with the knight, then rook to c7. So it's not so good to get your knight too exposed here in this position. So that's why a better continuation would be maybe to play something like bishop to c6 after the move queen to b1. So but here Magnus tried a little bit to spice up the position, bishop to d6, trying to get rid of this very powerful dark square bishop, and is trying to get maybe a positional advantage, because this bishop is a little bit blocked out by its own pawn. So maybe Magnus is trying to go into a favorable endgame here. And in the game, knight to d5 was played. The bishop takes d6, and here maybe queen takes d6 doesn't bring you so much, because you cannot take the pawn. That's the problem, because you get queen to a3 and the knight is trapped, and this would be a lost game for Fabiano Caruana. So that's why again Fabi plays a very natural move, knight to d5, not allowing any threats here. Here we have bishop takes e7, knight takes e7, and now queen to d6, attacking the knight. Again, knight to f5, getting this knight on a very active square, but also with a counterattack, which is very important. And now Magnus played also the accurate move, queen to a3, attacking here this weakness on a7. And now the game becomes really equal, because here Fabi simply protected the pawn with queen to b8, and now Magnus tried to find some kind of a play here with the move e4, but now queen to e5, a counterattack by Fabiano Caruana. If you try, for instance, to take here queen takes a7, it doesn't bring you so much. It seems that black has lost the pawn, but now we can also take this pawn on b2. Here after e takes f5, we can simply take queen takes e2. After something like f takes e6, we have bishop to e6. If you try, for instance, to do the fork here, then queen to d5, another problem, knight takes e6, queen takes e6. After queen takes b7, we have queen to a2, and you see again it's a simplified position, it's an equal position, and this would also lead into a draw. So that's why here after the move e4, Fabiano Caruana, as said, played the move queen to e5, and Magnus simply took. We have queen takes e2, knight to d4, attacking the queen. Here we have queen to e5, again the same scenario, f takes e6, and now after queen takes d4, we have here e takes d7, the bishop, and now Fabiano Caruana played the accurate move, rook to d8, not to take immediately here this pawn, because then queen takes a7 leads into a better position for Magnus Carlsen, but still it's playable. Still I think Fabiano Caruana can play for a draw here, but Fabiano didn't want to risk anything here. Rook to d8, we want to recapture, of course, here with the rook, not with the queen, because the queen is, of course, protecting this pawn on a7. So g3 was played by Magnus, creating some breathing space for the king. Rook takes d7, rook to e1, king to h7, and now queen to f3, and in this position both players agreed to a draw. This is really a theoretical draw. In this top grandmaster level, I don't think that anyone can lose this game, so this was of course a completely draw position, and it's a fair draw, I think. Okay, maybe this wasn't one of the best games that you have seen here in this tournament, but I wanted to show you it really because of this potential weaknesses that you can create in your opponent's position, how these top grandmasters like Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen don't allow any threats, any position. So that's why it was really a robotic game, sort of, and from my perspective, I really enjoyed it because it's an instructive game, and it was also a great defense, I think, played by Fabiano Caruana, because now Magnus Carlsen has accomplished, I think, the thing that he wanted. Now he in his head he has broken the world record, and now he can maybe finally try to play much more freely. I think we need a great Magnus in this tournament, because he has played only 6 draws. I'm not sure if he's satisfied with his performance in this tournament, and maybe in the continuation we'll see a more aggressive Magnus playing. So okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games from the series, and you can also watch my commented chess games played by computers. I'm pointing out we have this TCEC season 17 going on now, this second division, so you can also check it out. And you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.